Thank you so much, Marni Von Wilpert, for joining us here today. And thank you for those of you who are in attendance for this forum. For those of you who are just now joining us, my name is Jacole Kitchen. I am the Artistic Programs Manager and Local Casting Director for San Diego. I am in so much trouble for La Jolla Playhouse. And I am here in my position as the Executive Director for the San Diego Performing Arts League. Many of our member theaters live under District 5, including Scripps Ranch Theater and other programs that we have going on. So I'm so happy to be here, so happy to be welcoming you, and so happy about the great turnout that we have today. This is the 4th of 5 scheduled forums focusing on arts and culture. We have had one for each council person that is being elected this year. I want to just take a moment to say thank you to the arts and culture groups that came together to make this forum possible. That is the Balboa Park Cultural Partnerships, San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition, and Arts and Culture San Diego. So the core questions that we're going to be asking have been the same for all of the candidates, all throughout the city. With us today are George Moy, Cindy Stankowski, and Dave Brooks. George, why don't you start us off?
Hello, Marni. My name is George Moy. I am the Managing Director for Scripps Ranch Theater. We are a professional theater located on the campus of Alliant University. We were in our 41st season when everything came to a screeching halt through the COVID pandemic. In a typical season, we provide 5 full-length plays, which may include a musical, and finish our season with the Out on a Limb Festival, which celebrates new and emerging artists. In addition, we have an outreach program that brings live theater into the schools. We also have a summer theater camp, and in partnership with San Diego Playwrights, we do live staged readings of plays that have just been written by local artists. And as well, we sometimes partner with productions at Oceanside Theater. We bring thousands of people from all over San Diego into District 5 every year. It's great to have you here with us today. Cindy, let's hear from you.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. I'm Cindy Stankowski, Executive Director of the San Diego Archaeological Center. We're in District 5, right next to the Safari Park. Our mission is simple, and it's to preserve archaeological artifacts and share them with the public through exhibits, educational programming, and research. We curate over 1.4 million artifacts that document 12,000 years of human history in the region. Most people think we started with the mission. People were here long before that. We plan on opening to visitors on October 8th in celebration of California Archaeology Month. Until then, please visit our website at sandiegoarchaeology.org for more information about our virtual programs for K-12 students and adults. And David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Cindy. I've been a part of the Spirit of the Fourth Committee since 2001 and president since 2015. This all-volunteer group in Rancho Bernardo has conducted a day-long celebration of our nation's birthday since 1969, but not in 2020, of course. We begin the day with a community fair, which includes a motor show, a patriotic pet contest, a quilt show, and booths for vendors and community groups. In the afternoon, we have a parade, which includes about 400 students marching in bands from all 5 high schools in the Poway Unified School District. As the sun sets, we move to the fields of RB High School, where we have a live band and followed by fireworks. We sponsor 2 talent competitions called RB Star and RB Senior Star. The winners are in the parade and also perform before the crowd at the fireworks. Over the day, we estimate we see 15,000 attendees at all these events. Thanks, and I'm pleased to be here.
Thank you so much to our panelists, and welcome to our candidate, Marni Von Wilpert. Thank you so much for participating in this forum with us. We have a number of attendees from arts and culture organizations, both in District 5 and from around the city. Before we jump into our questions, we would just love to hear from you. You have up to 5 minutes. If you would just like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are running.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me today and for putting on the forum. George, I have been to the Scripps Ranch Theater. I actually grew up in Scripps Ranch. I went to Scripps Ranch High School, in which I was playing in the marching band, and I played in multiple 4th of July parades, not in RB, although I did get to participate as a candidate in the RB Spirit of the Fourth last year. I played in the Scripps Ranch 4th of July parade in Mira Mesa. I actually played at the Padres homecoming when they went through the World Series way back in 2001. That is the longest parade I've ever marched in, and it took a long time. But so I've been appreciating the arts and culture for a long time. I also got to play at the Starlight Bowl in Balboa Park when they called for a marching band at the end of one of the plays. So it's been a really unique opportunity for me to get to participate in arts and culture, and I hope that every student who goes through our public education system gets to experience music or theater or arts or anything that helps them succeed as a student, because I found that if you can succeed with arts and culture, often your academics excel as well. But after graduating from Scripps Ranch High School, I went to UC Berkeley for college. I then served in the Peace Corps in Botswana in sub-Saharan Africa during the height of the AIDS epidemic. This is the second time I've been through a major public health crisis. My job was to take care of children who were born HIV positive who had lost their parents to AIDS. And I've done contact tracing and testing. I have deployed public health systems. I never thought I would use those skills on a city council race, but here we are. And I'm currently a deputy city attorney. So I work for the city. I prosecute large environmental polluters here in San Diego. I am also prosecuting some of the opioid manufacturers for their fraudulent marketing that resulted in addiction, which burdened our 911 systems and affected many people here. And right now I'm prosecuting price gougers and COVID scammers, unfortunately, in this moment. But I'm really excited still to be running. Our city has a lot of challenges we're gonna face in the next few years. One of them being public health, and 2 being our economy. But something I'm reminded of about arts and culture is what Franklin Roosevelt did with the New Deal. And in the 1930s, making sure that arts and cultures were part of the economic recovery to make sure that artists got back to work and our country had art to rally around was a very powerful moment for us. And so I'm hopeful that we can do the same thing here in San Diego. We've started by calling for public murals. The city is funding artists to make public art to hopefully bring us all back together, even though we're physically distant right now. So I'd love to work with this community and figure out how we can make sure to get all of our artisans back to work. Nonprofits, in my view, are also small businesses. Even if they're not geared for profit, they have employees and they're a vital part of our economy. Dave, as you said, especially with our tourist economy coming up to RB and 15,000 people coming out for our cultures over our summer holidays is very important to me. Also up in District 5, and Cindy, I'm sure you've seen this, is we have quite a few wineries either in or on the border of District 5. And so that can be a huge part of our culture and tourism as well. People can go for wineries to the day and go for a show in the evening or vice versa. But I was talking to some of the winery owners and they said, Marni, we just need help with basic things like signage on the freeway to tell them where to go, or basic things like getting us in the tourism guides and making sure we're highlighted. So I'm happy to think of creative ideas like that and make sure that we don't forget about our artist community when we're going through our economic recovery period. So thank you for having me. I'm happy to answer questions and excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Marni. And I think that you're right that maybe the show comes before the wine, because if you put me at a winery, I might not make it to the show. But I like the combination of the two. Let's get straight into the question, shall we? Attendees from our first forum submitted a number of these questions ahead of time, and these are the questions that all of the candidates had been asked. But if we do have some time today, we're also going to get to some questions that come in through the question and answer. But to start us off, George, why don't you start with the first question?
Sure, thank you. Marni, by the way, what instrument do you play?
I played the French horn, but in marching band, since the French horn faces the rear, you have to play the mellophone so that your sound projects forward. I have not said that once on the campaign trail, but this audience will understand the difference. So I'm glad I got to use
brought it up.
Yes.
You partially answered this question already, but I'll ask it anyway. Arts and culture organizations are essentially small businesses. Like all small businesses, they've been hit hard by COVID. Unlike for-profit businesses, they were unable to access the city's recent small business recovery funding. When we emerge from this pandemic, we are likely going to see a devastated, if not severely hobbled, arts and culture sector. There will be immediate and longer-term recovery needs. The question is, would you support city investment or even a special recovery fund to assist the arts, culture, and creativity sector's recovery during the COVID-19 shutdown and future reopening, and ensure that any funding or recovery plan for small businesses also include nonprofit organizations?
Yes, I think we do need to make sure we're covering our nonprofits. And I agree with you, that's been a sector that's been left out of our conversation. Also, the performing arts has been left out of our conversation. It's going to be one of the last big industries we can bring back because of the need for mass gatherings. I was privy to see the protests that happened outside the county building a few weeks ago of all the performing artists venue specialists who brought all of their equipment for what they bring to venues to make sure shows go on. And that really moved me to see, you know, workers having their voice heard. So I think that's incredibly important. Something most folks don't know about me is I used to be a civil rights lawyer in Mississippi for years, and I started a nonprofit there with some of my old colleagues called Teen Health Mississippi. And our goal is to reduce the teen pregnancy rate in Mississippi, which is the second highest in the country. But we had to apply for a $90,000 PPP loan in this last go around to keep our workers employed. Luckily, we were able to get it and use it. But I understand that there's a need to keep people working. And so I'm glad that you bring this up, and it's something we have to have in conversations for future CARES Act money or HEROES Act if we ever get it, or money from the state. So thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next question is a very popular question that we've had regarding capital investments. Dave, I believe you have this question.
Marni, the city owns several arts and cultural facilities across the city, among them downtown theaters, Liberty Station buildings, and of course, Balboa Park. Many of these facilities have significantly deferred maintenance and their surrounding infrastructure is badly underfunded. Question, do you support and will you commit to pushing for the creation of a viable action plan to fund Balboa Park deferred maintenance, infrastructure, and the facilities, as well as increased support for city-owned cultural assets across the city?
Yeah, so as everyone I'm sure on this forum knows, Balboa Park is truly a jewel of San Diego, and it's been a huge driver of our tourism dollars. And as everyone here knows, TOT, transient occupancy tax, and our sales tax have been hit hard. And so the more we can bring back tourism safely to San Diego, including Balboa Park, which a lot of the facilities are outdoors or can be operated outdoors at this point, I think that we need to make sure we do invest in it. Our city budget is going to be massively hit in the next few years. And as a city employee, as a deputy city attorney, I too felt the crush of that when we were finally going to adjust city attorney salaries so that we could keep good personnel on board and not keep losing them to other jurisdictions. And we, of course, were disappointed when COVID hit and none of that came through. So I understand the budget crunches we're going to have to go through, but I'm also hopeful that getting our public works projects up and going, especially our deferred maintenance on infrastructure such as Balboa Park, or other projects we have put off deferred maintenance on much of our infrastructure here in San Diego. Anyone who's driven on many of the roads can tell you that, or had their businesses or homes flooded by a broken storm drain. But getting shovel-ready projects up and available so that when the federal funding comes through or state funding comes through, San Diego is first funded is very important to me. We saw that in the 2008 economic crisis. The cities that had shovel-ready projects ready to go first got funding. So Balboa Park can certainly be considered for one of those projects. It puts local people back to work and it creates value for the city. We might get HEROES Act funding for local governments and schools is anyone's guess. It might be the next year after the election, but I think it's a really valuable conversation to have to make sure that maintenance of things like Balboa Park and other theaters and areas are included in that as part of our public works.
Thank you so much. Cindy, I believe you have another very popular question that's come in from attendees.
Yes, hi Marni. This also has to do with TOT funding. Currently, 4 cents of every dollar of the transient occupancy tax, or TOT, raised by the city is dedicated to the promotion of the city. In 2012, the City Council passed a resolution called Penny for the Arts and Culture, which promised that 1 cent of that 4 cent portion would go towards support for arts and culture programs and institutions. Unfortunately, this resolution was treated more as a guideline, not a requirement. Therefore, funding for arts and culture has fallen short of that goal, and every year we're forced to fiercely engage in advocacy to secure even a fraction of the promised funding. Do you support fully funding the Penny for the Arts Culture Plan, which is a mere 9.52% of TOT, and would you support an ordinance that demands a maximum 4-year phased-in timeline to make this promise a budget requirement rather than being treated as a loose guideline?
Yep, I appreciate the briefing that I got from many folks in the arts and commissioner culture before this call to tell me about the Penny for the Arts and what has been going on with it, and I welcome those. I think our city council members should be actively soliciting information from experts in the community like you all. So I'm glad that you told me about this all before. I know that right now about 14 million in the city budget is given to arts and culture organizations, which is under the Penny for the Arts promise. And that 14 million often generates about $1 billion in revenue for the city in terms of all of the economic input it brings, tourism dollars, workers, employment. So, and 14 million is not enough for the arts and culture, and it's also not a huge dent in the city budget. So I do understand the need to be able to ramp this up. We're going to have a really hard time over the next couple of years, possibly hundreds of millions of dollars in deficit for our city because of the COVID pandemic. So I haven't been committing to any certain budget items now because I don't know what the budget looks like. And I think anyone who does commit to certain budget items without having any idea what we're getting into is just telling folks what they want to hear without being able to actually back it up. But I do support the idea of phasing in a program for the Penny for the Arts. I can't give specifics right now since I don't know what we're working with in our budget, but I do believe that there is a way that we could phase it in and make sure that we do get funding to arts. And I'm very happy to continue that conversation and make sure that it is included when we go through our next budget review.
Thank you. For those of us that are outside Balboa Park, the TOT funding is through the Arts and Culture Commission is really important to us. In follow-up, will you commit to always including achieving and maintaining Penny for the Arts and Culture as a top priority in all budget discussions and initial and revised budget memorandums?
Yes, I will definitely make sure that we have these conversations every time a budget review comes in, especially since there's so many businesses in District 5 who rely on arts and culture funding. I'm happy to make sure that we have an open line of communication, and I unfortunately can't commit to any certain budget item right now since I don't know what we're going to be dealing with. But certainly it is important to me, and making sure people stay employed is important to me. So I'm definitely open to making sure that we do include arts and culture in every budget.
I believe that George, you have another question that really hits on how much current events have been influencing what's on our attendees' minds.
Yes, I do. I think I do. Marni, as part of the mayor's commitment to a city that works for all, the commission has made great strides to ensure that the resources it manages are distributed in an equitable manner. To support this, the commission has launched a diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment as a 3-part initiative to assess our successes and our deficits and ensure that the commission is equipped to provide public sector work within the city's diverse communities. My question is, how would you work with the commission to ensure that access, equity, and diversity remain a priority for all neighborhoods?
Great question, George. And I'm also very glad to see that you are doing an assessment. I used to work in Congress for a year. I spent a year in the U.S. House of Representatives, and the congressman I used to work for, Bobby Scott, used to say, things that are measured tend to improve. And so if you don't measure something, there's no way you can improve it. So I'm glad to see you're doing an assessment. I'm also happy to see the city of San Diego has voted to create an Office of Race and Equity, which will be a huge part of tying into the Arts and Culture Commission's study and making sure that when funding is dispersed, it is equitable throughout the city. Making sure that everyone is included in our government is hugely important for me. You know, one of the reasons that I am running for office is because I believe that no matter what you look like or what faith you ascribe to or what gender you are or who you love, you deserve to be treated with dignity and equality and respect and kindness. And you deserve a government that promotes that. So I'm happy to work alongside you to make sure there is equity in the city along racial lines, economic lines, and I'm glad that you're highlighting this.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for that question, George. Our time is starting to run out, but we do have one more question that we would like to address before we see if we have some time for audience questions. This one is a structural one for the city. Dave, I believe that you have this question.
Yes, Nicole. San Diego has an incredibly diverse, culturally and historically rich arts and culture community, but it lacks the level of engagement and support from the city that many other world-class cities have enjoyed. Right now, there's an effort to create planning and engagement from the city to foster the strength of the arts, culture, and creative communities through a cultural plan and a cultural affairs department that would ensure planning is implemented. Question: do you support the creation of a cultural affairs department and the development of a citywide cultural plan that would elevate arts and culture as an industry critical to the economic health and quality of life in San Diego?
I think it's a really important idea to have arts and culture included in all of our planning, because especially of the economic boom it generates for the city, especially when we're not in pandemic times and we don't have to social distance and wear masks and all of those things. In terms of creating a new department, I will obviously have to defer and see how our city finances look and who becomes mayor and what proposals they put forth in terms of organizing new departments. But I'm definitely open to the idea, especially if they can support making sure that we keep people employed and keep our arts up and running. So I'm definitely open to this idea. I think it's an important thing to think about. And I'd love to see how other cities are doing it. I think we should learn from other examples. So I welcome that. And I welcome more education from all of you on best practices and how you think we can implement them here in San Diego. I think that's definitely open to it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I am looking at the time and technology is failing me just a little bit. And so I am going to go ahead and move to our next section. Although I'm sure that we could go on with this forever. This is just such a great conversation about arts and culture and the ways that we can continue to prioritize and improve it. I think that we do have some time to take a couple of questions from our audience. And Cindy, do you have a question?
I do. This is from Tyler Hughes and was upvoted to be included. District 5 has a limited number of arts and culture organizations. How do you see ways to trumpet and promote arts and culture in District 5?
Great question. One, I think we need to start working through our schools. That's how I got involved in arts and culture, was through my public school. And it was a wonderful experience. I don't think I would have been included had I not had that opportunity to be included with all the amazing instruments and orchestras. I actually ended up playing in the honor band of San Diego, the youth honor band, youth symphony. So making sure our schools and our youth have access to it. I'd love to think about other ways that we can make sure that our theater can even perform outside if we need to, George. I think there's plenty of ways we could figure that out. I mean, my old high school, Scripps Ranch High School, perhaps we could lend the soccer field to allow plays happen and have people come and bring picnic blankets, or down at Hoyt Park. I'm open to all of the ideas to make sure that people can include arts and culture. And I think it's what we really need right now, because we're all under this huge emotional burden of a global pandemic and an economic crisis. So if we can do things to bring some spirit to our community, I'd highly recommend it. Same thing, Cindy, with field trips and making sure that students know the history of the people who came before us. I think that's a beautiful idea. And it's also a great outdoor activity. So, that's a pandemic safe activity we can do, but I would love to help promote the arts and culture, and let me know how I can be helpful.
Wonderful. George, do you have an audience question?
Yes, actually, we have broached the idea of doing outdoor performances, so I might take you up on your offer there. Can you tell us more about your experience with arts and culture in District 5?
Yes, so in addition to the Scripps Ranch Theater, which has been fabulous, I've gone to many plays there. My parents used to take me, which is great. Playing in my own marching band. I've actually met some teachers, and I can't recall where I was knocking doors in the district, and they were teaching Hindu dance out of their garage. And it was beautiful. There were tons of young girls coming to learn an amazing Hindu American dance in someone's garage, and they were running their small business out of their garage. And I just thought I would have happened upon this had I not been running for office and out knocking doors, talking to neighbors. This is, of course, before the pandemic. Same thing with our Arts in the Park. Here in Scripps Ranch, at Hoyt Park, we used to have concerts at least, once a quarter, and it would bring the whole community together. It was a kid-friendly activity, and it was wonderful. I'm a huge supporter of the symphony, which I know doesn't spend a lot of time in District 5, but one of my great hopes this summer was to attend the Summer Pops at the Shell for the first time. Unfortunately, of course, we know why that didn't happen, but I will be there as soon as we're allowed to be back in public. I will be at the Shell. I go every year with my family to the Pops. The Tchaikovsky is my favorite, with the cannons and the fireworks. Although the Star Wars performances have gotten my heart recently. Those have been great. But I think the more we can do, obviously the parades that Dave has hosted has been great. That brought the whole community together to celebrate our nation, which I think is something we especially need right now with all of the anger and division in politics, which is why one reason I want to run for local office is to really be close to voters and talk to neighbors and be helpful. Constituent services is something that I want to excel at when I become a city council member, because if your government isn't serving your neighbors, what good is it? So please do continue to reach out to me. I definitely won't ever know all the answers. I don't pretend to. I listen to people, and I strongly consider people's opinions and thoughts and educated views before I make decisions. So I will always be open to new ideas with you and to figuring out how we can better improve our arts and culture society.
Thank you for that. And Dave, we have time for one more question.
Marni, I've got a question from the Friends of Balboa Park. How do you envision improving and expanding public awareness of Balboa Park's many needs? Do you believe that the citizens of San Diego truly understand and appreciate the role that they play in the health and the future of the park?
That's a great question. I think my first real experience that I remember with Balboa Park was when I was in the 6th grade, and we had a 6th grade camp, and we spent a lot of time in Balboa Park. In the 4th grade, we got to go to Old Town, which is why I really value that part of our culture and our history here in San Diego. But that really instilled in me what it meant to love this gem in our city. I grew up as a Girl Scout, and Girl Scout headquarters is located right there, right next to Balboa Park. I used to run all the Girl Scout camps in San Diego. It was one of my first jobs out of college, and we spent a lot of time learning about the arts at Balboa Park. I think we could do a better job educating folks on all of the different options and varieties in culture at Balboa Park, honestly, and make sure that San Diegans know. That's a really good point. I'm really proud of the Museum of Man for changing its name to be more inclusive. I know that was controversial, but I'm proud of us for doing that. And I think that we can do a lot more. Before the pandemic, I was just starting to go to these wonderful parties that the Modern Art Museum was throwing at Balboa Park, which I think was so fun. It was a new idea to get people involved in arts, and I think we will be able to get together again. And when we do, we need to have a lot of what my good friends call social narrowing parties after. And so I think hosting them at art venues would be a great way to bring joy back into our lives after this is over.
I couldn't agree more. Anytime that we can get together to celebrate art safely, but
Yep.
I love that term, narrowing versus
when it's time, when
distancing.
it's safe.
When it's time,
Yes.
absolutely. Marni, given all the questions that you've heard today, is there anything else that you would like for us to know? Anything else you'd like to say? The floor is yours for up to 5 minutes.
Great. Well, I'd actually love to hear more questions. As an attorney and now as a political candidate, I can talk all day, but I'd rather listen and hear from more of what you need. I think that honestly, we're going to need a lot of arts and culture, not only for adults, but for our children. You know, their social emotional learning is severely impacted by not being in school. I understand why we're not in school. We have to be safe first. Obviously, we're not going to get our economy open and steadily open, and our schools steadily open until we get this public health crisis under control, because we keep opening and closing. But making sure that especially youth have another outlet is hugely important to their social emotional well-being. You know, I'm on the board of San Diego Youth Services here, which we house homeless and foster youth. A lot of our youth are LGBTQ who are on the street because they weren't accepted at home. And a lot of the therapy that we get to do with them involves art to make sure that they can be emotionally healthy adults. And so I think that there's a huge role to play in making sure that youth are still connected to art and that we can do it safely and do it outside. It's one thing the city can do to be helpful to schools is the joint use partnerships for our recreation centers and for our parks to make sure that they have more expanded space. You know, we could use library space as well, since the libraries have to be closed right now. So I'd love to just be helpful in this realm, and I'd love your help in doing that. So all I ask is please stay in contact with me. I would love if I could get even more information about the arts and culture organizations, not only in District 5, but all throughout the city. You know, I have been on ride-alongs, for example, with our firefighters and our police officers. I've gone before the pandemic to shadow hotel workers to see what their jobs are like. I've intervened and enforced face covering rules for some of our grocery store workers who were being yelled at by customers who wouldn't enforce the mask wearing rules. As a city attorney, that was my job. So I'd love to shadow some arts and culture organizations, because I feel that as an elected official, you can really understand what people are going through when you actually take the time to visit. I mean, as an attorney, I'm so much better at arguing my cases. I've actually been to the scene where things happened and gone to the businesses where things went wrong. So please invite me to things, I will come. And I'd love to just be a partner with you and figure out how we can make sure that we all succeed.
Marni, for folks that would like to continue the conversation and have other questions that they would love for you to know what's on their mind, is there a way, a place where they can go to contact you?
Yes. So anyone here on the panel has my info, and Dave, obviously, we've talked many times over email, so please do get in touch. Also, my website is Marni, MARNI 4FOR San Diego.com, and there's a contact thing you can fill out there that we answer when people email in. My email is marni@marnivonwilpert.com. Feel free to contact me that way. But I really would like to follow up and meet some business owners in the district. That'd be great, and see how I can be a better representative. So
Thank you so much for that. Thank you for that direct connection to the people. It's so important. I just want to take one more moment just to thank Marni Von Wilpert so much for joining us. And I just want to also take a moment to thank George, Cindy, and Dave for all of your questions and for helping to make this forum a success. Everyone here, please mark your calendars for our final public forum, this one for District 7 on October 1st at 2:30 p.m. Once again, thank you so much, Marni, for being part of this forum.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work you're doing, and I appreciate you hosting.
Thank you,
My pleasure.
Marni.